I was talking on mute. Hello. Hello, hello. Don't even ask me why I'm doing such a late live. It's as simple as I can't sleep, and I don't know why, but I've got Twisha Sharma in my head at the moment. Not sure why. Possibly because it's gone a bit quiet. Anyway, I will say this is a ladies only live. If anyone wants to come, I'm not necessarily overly precious, but this can only be a ladies only live. यहाँ आदमी मर्द प्लीज कमेंट ना करो एंड ऊपर तो मैं यहाँ मैं लेने वाली नहीं हूँ क्योंकि I think lots of लोग शरारतां करते हैं जिन्हां नू लिंक चाहिदा होगा वो मैं तो मांग लोगे and then I'll send it to them privately, but yeah, definitely. In fact, if I do see a man comment, yeah, बंदा मैं सीधा block मारूंगी. In fact, I should turn comments off, but it's too late now because मैंने live शुरू कर दिया है. Oh dear. So I'll be honest, and I know some people might be offended with this, but ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਰਵਾਹ ਨਹੀਂ, I'm not that bothered. I want to talk about a case where a girl has lost her life, and it was hyped. Well, it was very hyped on mainstream media and social media. And then things just went quiet. I'm not sure why they went quiet, but they have. Or is it because I'm not watching mainstream media at the time? At this time. Could be that as well. So it could still be in the media, but I had to search. I had to actively search for it to come in, but it did grab public attention. This case, Twisha Sharma's case. And the media, yes, the media for once, and I say for once because ज़्यादातर जदों media दी intervention हुंदी है काम खराब ही करते हैं, but this time it was good because वो फिर trigger हो गया ना Supreme Court दा whole madakhlat is it? Intervention. ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਈਦਾ in English I know it's intervention. And ये spotlight ਜਿਹੜਾ and because of that ਉਹ ਜੋ entitlement, privilege, power ਜੋ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਉਹਦੇ ਸਹੁਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, it actually meant that they couldn't bypass the system, no? And it was a tragic death. You know, such a young girl, dynamic, educated, beautiful, a professional, a graduate. She'd worked in the media as well. She was successful in that arena as well, but she was found dead. And I think Benjamin Nevini hoy si bianu. And you know, there was Evie Gulsi that ਪੰਜਾਂ ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਚ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਤੰਗ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵਾਪਸ ਜਾਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਸੀ। ਪਰ ਕਿਸਮਤ ਨਾ, so ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੇਸ ਆ, it's not like it went from being a local tragedy to high stake, big global news and national news, legal battle, call it what you like. So ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, I'm not really that sure. Don't know, investigation, and I can nick how far it's got really. Why was it such a battle, a hard battle to pin down the key suspects who allegedly are the man she married and that man's mother? It was a real uphill battle. And again, I'm trying to be very careful with what I say and how I say it, because obviously it's very, very sensitive. But I'll try to do it from the top of my head. She says, trying to rack her brain out. I think it was around May that Twisha Sharma was found dead in her husband/mother-in-law's house. Roughly about 5 months, I think. Benjamin hoi si piano. I don't think मैं ओदी सस दा पूरा नां लौंगी ना ओदे आदमी दा, because I don't want to, not because there's any sort of it's not like we're bound by some legal ties that we can't say, you know, what her husband's name was and what her horrible mother-in-law's name was. I say horrible mother-in-law, and I don't mean, oh, I'm convinced that she murdered her. I just found the woman to be very cold and, yeah. Anyway, so I think she died around May. Her in-laws, I'm going to say in-laws, claimed it was she'd taken her own life, but Twisha's family then came out quite strongly, alleging that it was severe dowry harassment, mental abuse and foul play. And I think a lot of CCTV footage was then asked for, tampered with, all sorts of sort of foul play. Let's say foul play. No? That's the best way I can do this without getting into territory that becomes sort of, I don't know, conjecture, because that's down to the forensics team. You know, I just wanted to bring this back into the public. I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying it's not in front of me. So, you know, and I think the biggest question is, you know, what was the exact role of the mother-in-law? A retired judge, or I don't know what sort of judge she was, but I think she was a retired district judge. But again, you know, and the son, who was married to the girl, was a lawyer. So the first, I think the first report to the police was 2 days after Twisha's death. Oh dear. I think there were like severe allegations of DV, mental abuse, dairy-related harassment. I think there was potentially, and again I'm going to be really careful, but potentially there were ante-mortem injuries found on her as well before her death, pointed towards, like, physical mistreatment. Again, it's just what's out there to read. It's not. But if there were all these allegations, and after her death the family came out very strongly, why did it take so long to get the mother-in-law and the son behind bars? It's just an abuse of the system, major systematic abuse. I think the mother-in-law's connections, they granted a pre-arrest protection. I think they call it, anticipatory bail. I think. This is Indian law I'm talking about, but she got that because she had friends and colleagues in high places. The mother-in-law had spent decades operating within the local legal system, and the son's a lawyer as well. So it beggars belief. But yeah, they were protected early on. They didn't cooperate with investigators. They didn't cooperate with the law. That's basically it. And then along came good, intense public pressure, petitions, and then the High Court intervened. And I think that's when her bail was basically quashed, as they say. And there was potentially evidence that she'd tampered with evidence, and something to do with Twisha's injuries as well. And then I think, and again, this is my opinion, not my opinion, my understanding is, because both the mother-in-law and potentially, possibly the son, I think because they had an influence around the local law enforcement agencies, I think the case was given to the CBI. And I think that's what got them behind bars. Although the son you could say, gave himself up. But that was after 10 long days. And how can someone be on the run for 10 days and then just walk into a court and sit in a courtroom full of his colleagues as if, he's just popped in for a cup of tea? That's how I saw what he did. I'm struggling for words today because when I thought I would do this life, it was all straight in my head. It's no longer straight in my head. I don't know. What I wanted to talk about was the role of the mainstream media. Did it help? I know people always say, "Oh no, mainstream media always makes things worse," and I for one, I have very little faith in mainstream media globally. They are hand in hand with their governments. They are all on the payroll. I don't care what anyone says. That's my opinion. and they normally sway whichever way the people in power want them to sway. But this time, did it help? I think in many ways it did. It did. And it was relentless. It was like almost covering it 24 hours, because obviously they have the tools to loop the broadcasts on social media platforms. So it was 24 hours. And that, in a way, when I say did it help, yes, because it stopped the case from just going quiet or being sidelined or people in power pulling the plug, because the one thing you can't do is pull the plug on social media. And the media, they kept their family, Twisha's family, at the forefront. In fact, it totally amplified the protests. And for once, it forced the law's hands to deal with this with, I think, more intense legal scrutiny. And they forced a second post-mortem. And I think it was potentially one of the factors that made this case go over to the CBI. I mean, I don't know if initially I was thinking it's really heavy-handed. This is really too much. You know, can it compromise the case? That's always at the front of my mind, is when you see things that are, I say things, but when you see cases that are already sort of lodged in court and then they're getting exposed on social media, you always think, is this going to compromise the case? Is this going to put these people at a disadvantage? I don't know. I know that the husband and the mother-in-law's defence, if you call them, they were pushing back against television coverage, because they just go with that. What do they call it? Trial by media. That's what they were saying. And I don't think they were saying that because it was creating public hysteria. I think they just knew that the truth had come out and the public had got their teeth into it and they weren't going to let it go. And I think the courts did attempt to filter out some of the noise. But, you know, and I'm not a fan of Arnab, but I'm really glad he pushed back. I'm really glad he pushed back. For once. I never thought in my life I would ever say anything in favour of Arnab, but there you are. I think for Twisha's family, going to the news outlets was what a horrible, horrible trade-off they had to do with their grief. Because they didn't really get time to grieve, did they? But they did it. They wouldn't have been able to do it by themselves. They needed the Arnabs and they needed the Barkas of this world. Because ultimately they're up against a family that was, I don't know, just sort of, they had quite a strong judicial background. And they may have feared them as well. Remember, they didn't really know the family. This couple met on a dating app. So they didn't really, and I think they were extremely different. If I was to put it in layman terms. And they probably did what they thought was best at the time, just kept in front of those cameras because that was potentially the only way they were going to force the authorities to look at the evidence again and again and again. But why has the media gone quiet now? That's my question. Because I really had to search. To see if I could find any update. And I don't know why she was rocking about in my head, but she was. Because it's gone, the whole case, it's gone from being quite chaotic as well. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. You know, with all due respect, it was extremely chaotic. You know, the whole breaking news scramble, I want to say this race for TRPs, because we all witnessed a little bit of that. And we all know how Arnab likes to shout and scream, and we know who they're in competition with. And I'm not going to name all of them because I don't like any of them. Oh dear. You know, I don't know. Is it a more structured? Has it gone from chaos to structure now? Is it because they're both behind bars and the CBI are operating behind closed doors, just like they did for another high-profile case that the media was all over? I don't know. Maybe they are doing it behind closed doors to finalise all the forensic reports. Maybe the daily, I don't know, I don't want to say sensationalism, but it was. You know, it had to drop off at some point. But as we stand, the case is with the CBI. What I've read is the judicial custody. So in layman's terms, judicial custody means that they are behind bars, the prime accused. That means the husband and the mother-in-law. And as usual, the CBI have probably dragged it out. Because it's always, what do they normally say? They always say, it's in the final stages. Yes, we're nearly there. I don't know if they've been given a deadline to wrap it up. I hope they have, for Twisha's sake and Twisha's family's sake. I hope they have. Sorry, I just need to, I'm rubbing my eyes, which I know I shouldn't, but I have. I do. I've lost my thread. And for once, I can't even blame comments because there's no one in comments, but I'm not bothered. I like to talk. I did read somewhere earlier that, and again, look, I read it here on the Tinternet, and it could be fake, but apparently the accused, they're still, they keep applying for bail in their local courts, which thankfully are being rejected. Oh dear. Yeah, and it was sad. You know, the parents, the family of Twisha, they couldn't cremate her, could they? It took 12 days. That's almost 2 weeks. And that's because they needed a second post-mortem because, again, you know, there was talk that there'd been foul play there. That the mother-in-law had a sister who was there at the autopsy. I say autopsy, I shouldn't really, because we call it a post-mortem. Oh dear. It is really difficult, isn't it? For your average arm bandi family, even when they're professionals, so it's difficult when they're up against massive institutional corruption, bias. I think overall, though, this case, it's laid bare the deep-seated issues surrounding this type of institutional bias as well. You know, the safety of women in their in-laws' homes. You know, the complexities of a case that is so high profile. Why is it high profile? Because you're working with people who are deep rooted into this legal system. And it could be a test for the judicial system as well. A test of integrity, transparency, accountability, but ultimately justice, right? And I think all we can do is hope and pray that girl gets justice. But, you know, her family are fighting hard. And so they should. But I hope and pray that they're able to grieve. Because this is big. Losing someone is horrific anyway. And it doesn't matter who they are and what their relationship is, but then not being able to grieve them, that just seems cruel in a way. Because it's an open wound. It's an open wound until they get justice for their daughter, for their sister, and for the friends, the family. It was just heartbreaking. She had her whole life ahead of her. And then we get stuck during the grieving process. We get stuck on the what if only. But at some point, we've got to forgive ourselves for the what ifs and if only I had done that. And what if this hadn't happened? And here I'm talking about Twisha's friends and family and loved ones, not the people who took her life. I really, really hope and pray that they get the justice that they deserve soon, and they can then. I think I've said closure. I don't even know if that's appropriate for me to say closure, because you don't really ever get closure in these sort of circumstances. She didn't pass away through, natural causes. Her life was taken from her. But here we are. And she was feisty. And she was able to stand up for herself, but that's obviously what they didn't like. Why? That's the problem. And I'm going to say something now that really pissed people off back in May and in early June, when I said the similarity with Giribala and this Soma Devi is uncanny, not just their physical likeness, but that whole being driven by ego, although, social status was completely different. But social status, education, power, it can have an influence on your personality to a certain degree, but ultimately, these women, they are toxic. I mean, what can I say about, and I don't even want to go into this territory, and I know my friends will, when they hear this live, I know my friends are really going to tell me off, but I'll take the risk. Because it's in my head, and I am, as I'm talking about this Giri Hui Bala, who quite rightly is behind bars, I can't not think about someone who is as evil, and that is this Somad. I can't call her a Devi, she's a devil. That's what she is. Do rakla, dekhi hoya. She's doing exactly what this Giri Hui Bala did. She's trying to protect her son, who is just out of control. And why is he out of control? Upbringing. Dirty upbringing. Dirty mindset. And when I say dirty, if I put it into context, dirty as in soch, gandhi, shorty, limiting, limited, toxic, selfish. I've got something else going on in my head, but I'm going to have to talk about it another day, because I am sick of this proxy war, and I want you people to Google this proxy war. Who's the martyr in this? There are no martyrs. मैं दस नहीं, मैं कोई लाइव लूव नहीं देखा, पर लोग फिर भी दस दिंदे आ. And a couple of questions मैं आप पूछे, because people will message and say, oh, have you seen this, have you seen that? And I'm like, no. And they'll go and ask the question thinking, oh shit, oh my god. I mean, the fact that शराब पी के किते पहुंच जाना, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਹੀ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ, because ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਡਰ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ ਜੇ ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾੜਾ ਮੋਟਾ ਕਹਿ ਵੀ ਲਊਗੀਆਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਸਿਰ ਮੱਥੇ. Simple as that. ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਕੁੜੀ ਆ ਵਿਆਹ ਪੀ ਕੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਆ, ਕਿਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ? ਉਹ ਲਿੰਗੜਾ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਤੂੰ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਨੇ ਪਾਇਆ ਹੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਖਲਾਰਾ ਆ, ਪੈ ਗਏ ਖਲਾਰੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਾਇਓ ਆ. ਇਹਨੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪਾਇਓ? ਕਰਕੇ ਤੈ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਖੁੱਲੀ ਸਾਨ ਡੰਗਰ ਛੱਡਿਆ ਆ, ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ, ਅੱਜ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ, ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਆ ਭੇਜਦਾ ਆ, ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਭੇਜੂੰਗਾ, ਪਰ ਇਟਸ ਕਮ ਔਨ ਟੌਪ. ਉਹਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਭੈਣ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਭੈਣ ਆ, ਭੈਣ ਚੋਦਾ ਤੇ ਤੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੇਰੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੀ ਮਾਂ ਆ, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਤਾੜ ਇਹੀ ਕੁੱਤੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਉਦੋਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰ ਜਾਓ, ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਆ ਫੇਰ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੀ ਮਾਂ ਆ. ਉਸ ਬੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਫੈਂਡ ਕਰਨ ਗਿਆ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਤੇ ਹੱਥ ਪਾਇਆ, ਡਿਗਨਿਟੀ ਤੇ ਹੱਥ ਪਾਇਆ, ਚੀਚਾ ਲੇਦਰ ਕੀਤੀ. ਵਾਹ ਰੇ ਬੌਣੇ ਕੁੱਤੇ. तेरे नाल तां ओह् हाल होना ना when you're behind bars, तेरी सोच तो परे आ जेह्ड़ा हैगा ना 4 ਫੁੱਟ ਦੀ ਲਾਸ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਰਦਾ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਤੇਰੇ ਵਰਗਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ behind bars, ਤੇਰੇ ਵਰਗਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਿਲੌਣਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ they rattle and then they pass the parcel. And most people, they'd object, but you will love it. ਏਡਾ ਤੂੰ ਆਇਆ। ਤੂੰ ਹੈਗਾ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਵੈਸੇ ਇੱਕ ਥੱਪੜ ਦੀ ਮਾਰ ਆ। This is social media. You think you're big. You think you're someone. But actually, you're no one. ਕੋਈ ਵਜੂਦ ਨਹੀਂ। ਤੇਰੀ ਆਈਡੈਂਟਿਟੀ ਕੀ ਆ? ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਸੋਚ। ਕੋਈ ਆਈਡੈਂਟਿਟੀ ਤੇਰੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਾੜੀ ਮੋਟੀ ਇਹ ਬਣੀ ਆ ਨਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ YouTube ਦੀ ਹੱਦ ਤੱਕ TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. And I don't mean TikTok as in that ganda platform. I mean TikTok time clock. Tick, 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 tick. Or ਸੁਣਦੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ in your head. Because time ਆ ਗਿਆ. A cat has 9 lives. You've used all your lives, mate. You're gunned. ਤੇ ਕਦੀ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੀਤੀ ਦਾ ਦਿਮਾਗ brain wash ਕਰ ਲਿਆ, ਕਦੀ ਉਹ ਦੂਜੀ ਵਿਚਾਰੀ ਦਾ। ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਵਿਚਾਰੀ ਕਹੂੰਗੀ from what I've been told, ਉਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਸਹੀ ਛਿੱਤਰ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਗਈ ਆ from what I've been told. ਗੰਦੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੰਦੀਆਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਸਾਫ਼ ਸੁਥਰਾ ਆ। ਕੁੱਤੇ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਮਾਰਨਾ। ਇਹ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਨਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਚੋਂ ਈਜ਼ਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ। ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਗਾਲਾਂ ਗੂਲਾਂ ਕੱਢ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਪਰ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਚੋਂ ਈਜ਼ਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ। ਪਰ ਤੇਰਾ ਕਾਲਾ ਮੂੰਹ ਤਾਂ ਨੀਲੇ ਪੈਰ। ਜੋ ਤੈਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਗਾਂਹ ਕਰੀ ਵੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਨਾਡੂ ਖਾ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਆ। And I say more power to that ਉਹ ਕੁੜੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਕੁੜੀ ਆ ਨਾ she had the guts. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਿਹਾ ਉਹਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਧੂੜਾ ਕੱਢ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ। ਏਦਾਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ। And I hope one day Preeti has the same guts. She needs to step out of this whole Yimekama. Comes back to proxy wars, doesn't it? But ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੋਲਦੀ because I think ਮੈਂ ਬੋਲ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਮੈਂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਸੀ। I've made my position very, very clear. Very clear. So it's time to get up and rise and start fighting your own battles. Not like come out like a meek little cat, all right, and just scratch at the glass a couple of times. You need to rise up like a proper sherni. You're empowered, you're strong. You can't keep hiding behind this I need peace, it's all right, I've got an army. When you think you've got an army to fight your battle, that's what you call a proxy war. Come out of the martyr syndrome. And I think I better stop talking because my friends are going to go nuts. My friends are going to tell me off for even bringing up this subject. And I shouldn't, but what can you do? And I will never do a dedicated live on them. It's been way too much time and energy. I'm quite, it's good to see that ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਹੁਣ ਨੰਗਾ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਬੋਤਲ ਪੀਂਦਾ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਰੋਜ਼ ਦੀਆਂ 2 ਪੀ ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਈਵ ਦੇ ਟੱਟੂ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਚੜ ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਭੌਂਕ because you're a clown and clowns are entertaining so ਤੂੰ entertain ਕਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੱਸ ਲੈਣਾ ਆ because that's what you are. You're a clown. Clown. Actually, no, you're a monkey with the mask, with the clown mask. ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਟਪੂਸੀਆਂ ਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਆ ਨਾ ਚਲੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਵੇਰ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਤ ਲਿਆ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ ਚੰਗਾ okay ਚੰਗਾ bye have I got anything else to say no okay bye